Good afternoon, Richmond. Welcome to the Nexus with your host, Charles Wilson. It's a new radio program here on WQCN, The Choice 105.3. And I am so excited to be here and to be able to share what this new show is about, to share with you my company's purpose here in Richmond and what this platform will be used for the residents and stakeholders and people who literally want to come to the table with solutions for this community, for our city, and for our region. Again, my name is Charles Wilson. I am the managing partner of CW Consulting Group, and under my umbrella, I have a concept and program called the Legacy Builders Apprenticeship Academies. And it's through this program and through this effort that we are going to meet our ultimate goal as a company, as an organization, with me as a person, to eradicate poverty. This show is meant to serve as a platform to bring solutions. And the only way you can bring solutions is to have collaborations, to have teams, to have people who are focused on one goal and helping people and helping others. And ultimately, for me, I believe it all needs to be encompassed and connected with love for the people. So you'll find me saying those words and using that term, love, the people, purpose, throughout the program that we're going to be doing here on Wednesdays at 2:30 on the Choice 105.3. So I want to sort of give an introduction about who I am, why am I here, what is this about? I want to first thank Mr. Mike King, who has his own program on the mic with Mike RVA, for affording me and my company the opportunity to share with Richmonders and others within the region about how we can bring solutions to the table for something that has been an issue specifically in the Black community regarding the ability to break cycles of poverty and create generational wealth for now and for generations to come. So with that, let me give you at least a background about me and who I am and why do I believe I'm in a position to share with you these things that I've spent a lot of time, a lot of resources and efforts in establishing as what I believe to be sort of a template and a blueprint that can help the people within our communities to access the economic opportunity that's eluded us for so many times and so many generations. So originally myself, I'm from Chicago, born and raised there. And I was born to a single parent household. My mother, Elizabeth Wilson, she had me when she was 17 years old and she raised me. She raised me in the streets of within the streets of Chicago with my two younger sisters. And we were the benefactors, we were the recipients of SNAP benefits for most of my childhood. And I could tell you this, you want to see someone be resilient, to have the level of grit and commitment, put them in an almost impossible situation. And you start to see the character in a person. And what I saw throughout that time with a young teenage woman, the mother of three children, the fathers who decided to leave her alone, the man I didn't know throughout my childhood except occasional visits once a year, maybe once every 2 years, the father to five other children with four other women. I saw a woman who was determined not to give up, who wanted to ensure that we had love surrounding us, who wanted to ensure that we had options and that we didn't have to be statistics to what in that time for me being raised in the late 90s and the early 90s and late 80s as an adolescent. She wanted to show me that just our surroundings didn't dictate what our future could be. And so it was during that time that for me, I focused a lot on my academics. You know, it was a very violent time in Chicago during that time. The gangs were pervasive and the drug dealing on the streets. There was just so much that was there to serve as a distraction, to harm me, to create alternate paths that wouldn't have been in my best interest or that for my family. So I focused on my academics and went through elementary school, high school, and eventually graduated. But I got to tell you, I didn't have a plan. Growing up there, what I found was that I just wanted to be alive. When I graduated, the plan was to not be dead. And I found myself not dead once I graduated high school. And I was living with my girlfriend at the time who, was a ward of the state. And we had a child about a month after we became pregnant, about a month after I graduated high school. And everything that my mother had taught, all the principles and things, it seemed to be as if I was going right against the grain of that. I was about to repeat the cycle of being a teenage parent. And I didn't want that for myself. I didn't want for the child we eventually had to have an absentee father or a person who didn't have values that I can instill and that she would be proud of within me as a man, especially as a Black man. And so I had a friend of mine who joined the Navy, called me and said, "Hey, Charles, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Man, I'm delivering pizzas and about to have a baby." And so he said, "Hey, I'm going to the Navy. I need one more person as a referral. And if I do that, then I can go up a rank and then you can join and, have a career, at least something to start with." And so I agreed. And a few months later, went into boot camp. And that's when I was exposed to an area that I'm going to be focusing on for the duration of my program over the next few weeks. I became exposed to something called the skilled trades. And that was when I was accepted in the Navy nuclear propulsion program. It was a very elite, rigorous, challenging 20 months of training that would eventually certify me to be a nuclear mechanical operator, what we call an engineering laboratory technician. Now, these are all fancy, terms and things that I know for me, I wasn't familiar with. I was even mispronouncing nuclear. I'm like nuclear, you know, and that said enough to me about for us, especially within our community. Sometimes we need to know that we have value. And I could tell you when you feel like you have something to lose, it influences and impacts the decisions that you make. And for me, I know that if as a teenager in high school, if I'd have known that the kind of opportunity that I end up mapping my career out within for the next over 20 years, if I'd have known that that was a possibility for me, that the skilled trades was an option, I would have done things differently. I would have felt like I had something to lose. And so with that, I joined the Navy, I volunteered for submarines, and do not ask me why I purposely got on a piece of metal that is meant to sink underwater. Uh, but it was a great experience. And for me, it also showed that sometimes you just got to do what you have to do. You have to go get it. If you want it, you have to go get it. Despite what the odds may be, despite what people around you may say you're incapable of, if you know it in your mind that you have the skill and the ability, you can do it, go get it. Do it with faith. And so I spent 6 years in the Navy as this nuclear mechanical operator and engineering laboratory technician, which effectively allowed me to do radiochemistry or nuclear chemistry aboard the submarines because we had nuclear reactors, which is what powered the ships. This translated directly to a career after my 6 years in the Navy in the commercial nuclear space. I worked at a nuclear power plant as a nuclear chemist or radiochemist and continued to do that for the next 5 years after I was discharged in 2003. I got certified after that time as a nuclear instructor, and then ultimately in 2013 was certified as a senior reactor operator certified trainer, which allowed me to train and license individuals who would ultimately be the senior reactor operators, and non-licensed operators within the commercial nuclear industry. Now, I could tell you that as a Black man, having served both in the Navy in the nuclear capacity and in the commercial nuclear industry, that I didn't see a lot of us. I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me working these careers and these jobs. And I could tell you since 2004, when I first took my job in the commercial nuclear industry, I've never made less than $100,000 a year. Never. And there's something I want to point out to you that if you haven't surmised or uh, recall hearing, I didn't have a degree. I didn't have a degree. And to this day, I still don't have a 4-year degree. And what it showed was the power of the skilled trades and the ability to not only break cycles of poverty, but to create a lifestyle and a quality of life, not only for myself, but for my family, for my children moving forward. And so there were some, schools that had inquired about some career day opportunities where you come in, you speak to the young people, you share with them what opportunities exist for them. And I was invited to do that in 2008. And it was during that time, as I looked at our young people that were in the high schools that I was speaking at, I'm like, they just don't know what's out here. What we find is, especially in impoverished environments, violent environments, as far as our neighborhoods and communities at times, we feel like that's normal. We think that because 90% of the hands that go up in a classroom of 30 or 40 students, predominantly Black from some of our urban areas, we think it's normal for us to all pretty much raise our hands and say we know someone who's been killed by violence, by gun violence. We think that that's normal. We are unaware of what I like to call our hood related PTSD, that we have real traumas that carry over in areas and we don't know how to deal with that because we don't get the help we need. We don't believe there's someone that we can confide in who would understand what we're dealing with, the struggles we do just to get up and do what we do, to go to school, the fact that we're dealing with hunger and hopelessness around us. And so I looked in these classrooms as I was doing my job, and I'm like, I think that we should start doing more than just talking. We should be doing something, creating a blueprint and a platform for these young people who are in these communities to know that there's more out there for them. And so I started with creating a intervention, character and development program that was delivered, created, and we essentially put this out to about 50 different middle and high schools, the Job Corps, alternative schools throughout the Chicagoland area, in Philadelphia, and Baltimore, and a number of other school districts. And we shared effectively how to make better decisions. The curriculum and all we wrote was based on critical thinking, with one question always being within the under thread and within the thread of what we were delivering is, what I'm about to do, is it worth what I'm about to lose versus what I gain? Is what I gain worth what I might lose in this decision I'm about to make? And we wanted to have our young people understand that that decision is made for you throughout the day. It's a decision tree. It's a decision tree throughout the day. And after 4,000 students had successfully gone through our program, what I knew is, I'm like, if I want these people to really have something that incentivizes their behavior change, ultimately we have to have a job or a career that's waiting for them. And so we started to think about, okay, let's get them in front of these human resource managers, these hiring managers within the industry. And with that, put time into training them on the curriculum, on the culture and things that are required to be successful in those energy spaces, in those utility spaces. But then during those years, I found that there's another industry that had just as much need and just as much attrition due to retirements, due to people just being tired and wanting to go to different industries. And that was in the construction industry. And so I made it my focus to think about, okay, why is there a lack of diversity? And what I found is there was always this excuse: we can't find the talent. We can't find the talent. And that's not good enough. That's not good enough. If we then focused on the solution of bridging the gap between what these hiring managers, these construction firm owners, these energy companies, if they're saying they can't find the talent, let's attack that. Let's get people ready with the talent. And so I focused on my company getting an accreditation. And it's through this organization called NCCER, or the National Center for Construction Education and Research. And in 2019, we were accredited, which allowed us to then have access to all of the 70 plus credentials that the NCCER had created. They're Department of Labor recognized, nationally recognized credentials that cover from plumbing and carpentry, from HVAC to electricians to overhead line technicians to underground technicians. All of these were encompassed in the curriculum that was delivered, which would then afford and allow me as a company to then set up apprenticeship schools, not only in one city or one state, but nationally recognized credentials. And my focus, because of that lack of diversity I saw within those two industries, my focus has been on skilling up, credentialing Black people, young people, our returning citizens, our women, and our veterans. And so, with that, about 1 year ago, my wife, Lamisha Wilson, and I moved here to Richmond. It was right during the pandemic, the start of the pandemic in March of last year. And one of the most encouraging things I saw in Richmond was the cranes that were in the skies, that were along the skyline. I started seeing all of these projects, all these construction projects around the city. But one of the things I didn't see was diversity, insofar as I didn't see a lot of Black people on these sites. And for a city that I'd come to find had a population that was 50% Black, that had a outstanding Black mayor and Mayor LeVar Stoney, that had a wonderful city council that was made up of a number of Black people as the council members, I felt that it did not equate to what I believe the talent was that Richmond has. And so with that, with our own funds that were initially slated to go into our own investment property, our desire to sort of build out and expand what our resources were, I asked my wife if she would be willing to redirect those dollars we had into investing with the people here in Richmond, by establishing an apprenticeship school that would afford them the skills and allow them to compete on a level playing field. And so she graciously agreed and supported me as I sought out a commercial space here in the city. And I was very fortunate to have found a 4,000 square foot space at 5264 Chamberlain Road, located inside the Brook Hill Azalea Shopping Center, 2 doors down from Dollar General. And with that, we were introduced through a neighbor that we have on our block on the home that we found on the north side, Mr. or Dr. Julian Hayter. He's a professor at the University of Richmond. And in our just casual engagement when we first moved here, I shared with him the vision that I had with bringing an apprenticeship school to the city. And he immediately thought into his relationships, thought about the relationships that made sense, and connected us with the Office of Community Wealth Builders and their director, Valerie Mitchell. She took a meeting with us. We shared with her, again, the vision that we wanted with the city, and she immediately said, we want to partner. And I found at the Office of Community Wealth Builders, there was such a beautiful synergy in what my desire is, which is to ultimately eradicate poverty, and what their focus and goals are for the community, which is to eradicate poverty. And so they spearheaded the recruitment. We spearheaded the funding. We spearheaded ensuring that we had the quality training, the materials. They also, opened their books to allow the sponsoring of the tool belts, some of the tools, the books that the students would use or the candidates would use. And we launched in December 21st. We started our first cohort of Black residents of Richmond, and ensuring that after a rigorous Monday through Friday boot camp style from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. training day for 16 weeks, that they would come out with their OSHA 30 certification, their level 1 or year 1 residential and commercial carpentry credentials through NCCER. And I'm proud to say that as a company, our intent and goal was to never be a pump. We didn't want to just send people to the industry that may not be reflective of where we are now. We wanted to send people to the industry that had that had the credentials, the respect, and the eye of individuals say, hey, you all represent what we want as a worker, as a workforce, from being on time to being drug free to having safety as a baseline and a core competency and behavior. And I'm proud to say that at the end of that 16 weeks on April 9th, though we started with 5, we ended with 3 high quality, certified, credentialed individuals who, by the time they graduated on April 9th, they all had job offers for not jobs, but careers here in the construction industry. And so that motivated us to say, we've got something here. And I'm happy to say that we are right now launching our next cohort of commercial carpenters. We have a class of 9 where 3 of the 9 are women as well. So we wanted to ensure we were inclusive and show that the construction industry isn't just for men, it's for women and men. And with and through this opportunity, through all the construction that we have going on in the city, from a casino that's going to be built, from the public safety building that's been purchased to do work for VCU and around the McDonald House, to in Henrico, the Green City Project, a $2.3 billion project. There's now no reason for the Black community members here in Richmond to have a seat at the table, to be considered for some of these high paying, skilled career opportunities. And so that's what brings us here and brings us to this point, that we can eradicate poverty together, that it requires a village, that it requires all of us getting our hands on deck and bringing the best game that we can to the table, and ensure that we are representing and putting our best foot forward and showing the best representation of ourselves. So now I'm also excited about the partnerships that we were able to forge during this time. We were fortunate in finding an organization that basically had the same vision as us, called One Vision LLC. And it's led by 2 people that I consider brothers and mentors now, and Dr. Lonnie Stinson and Reginald Stinson. And they have a location, a 73,000 square foot space location at 2500 Turner Road in North Chesterfield. And in that space, we're going to expand our vision of bringing these skilled trades training opportunities to the Richmond residents and those beyond. We're going to expand in June in having both an HVAC and an electrical component. And one thing that I didn't share is all of this will always be free for the people who are going through this. I know that sounds crazy, but it's going to be free, because we don't want there to be any impediment for the people being able to, who desire to skill up, to add value to themselves. We don't want to have any impediments to their ability to do that. And cost shouldn't be the reason. We're proud to say that during the time that we were getting our finishing our accreditation and starting our company, we submitted ourselves to the local Workforce Investment Board, the Capital Region Workforce Investment Board. And we were in February given the distinction of being an eligible training provider through the state's Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, sourced with the Department of Labor. And so what that means is our residents who meet certain criteria can also find themselves being funded and supported from the Department of Labor through the WIOA, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act dollars. There's another component to this that we wanted to make sure that we did as far as incentivizing, and that is that we're going to provide a weekly stipend that'll be paid out bi-weekly to all of our individuals who are going through our program. We want to make sure we take care of transportation. We want to make sure we're taking care of food. We want to make sure that we're being flexible also in our offerings. So the first cohort we spoke about, we had from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. This cohort that we're doing with the carpenters, because we know people are in school, we know people are working sometimes, we wanted to do it in the evening so that they had the opportunity to upskill and not lose the pathways in which they can get those credentials that allow them to increase their income. And so with that, I want to say that each week that we're here, the intent is to highlight opportunities, highlight Partnerships highlight those advocates that are out there that are going to help put this blueprint together. We're going to expand this training program to where at least everyone within the Richmond area, especially in our underserved communities, can either walk or get there through public transportation and access the training that will allow them to compete. We've also been fortunate to have a wonderful partnership with the Communities and Schools, which is a wonderful nonprofit organization who focuses on providing supportive services and intervention with Richmond Public Schools, Henrico Schools, Petersburg, and other Chesterfield schools, high schools and middle schools, elementary schools throughout. And I'm proud to say that through that relationship and a wonderful director there, Verinda Cobbs, we've got 3 students who are in our cohort right now, graduating seniors, who will come out of this training with their diploma and a credential by the end of the summer. So more to come each week. I just want you all to know that we're committed. We're committed to bringing excellence to the community. We're committed to being examples here. And through this show, we're going to ensure that, again, people have access. We call it the Nexus because Nexus means bridge and a connection. And our desire is to ensure that we're a bridge and a connection to and helping people to establish their own legacies of success. So signing off today, I want to just tell you at this point, let's do it. It's time to do. It's less talking. It's time to do. So until next week, you all have a great day, great week, and we'll talk to you soon.